California Real Estate Practice. Unit 1 Vocabulary. Getting started in real estate 1. Broker Association, an organization made up of licensed real estate brokers who work together to promote their collective interests in the real estate industry. 2. Buyer's market, a market condition in which there are more properties for sale than there are buyers, giving buyers greater negotiating power and potentially lower prices. 3. California Association of Realtors, a registered, the largest professional association of real estate agents in California, representing over 200,000 members and providing education, advocacy, and resources for real estate professionals. 4. Caravans, group tours of properties for sale, typically organized by real estate agents or brokerages to showcase their listings and network with other agents. 5. Completed staff work, a management technique in which employees are empowered to take full responsibility for a task or project from start to finish, without needing approval or micromanagement from a supervisor. 6. Daily planning, the process of setting goals and prioritizing tasks for each day, to maximize productivity and achieve long-term objectives. 7. EPRO certification, a professional certification program offered by the National Association of Realtors, a registered, NAR, that focuses on the use of technology and digital marketing in real estate. 8. Employee, a person who works for a broker or real estate agency as a staff member, typically receiving a salary or hourly wage and benefits. 9. Goal setting, the process of defining specific, measurable objectives for personal or professional development, and creating a plan to achieve them. 10. Independent contractor, a self-employed individual who works for a broker or real estate agency on a commission basis, without receiving employee benefits or being subject to direct supervision. 11. Inventory, the total number of properties or units available for sale or lease in a given area. 12. Mentor program, a structured training and support program in which experienced real estate professionals guide and advise new or less experienced agents. 13. Multiple listing service, a database of properties for sale or lease, shared among member brokers and accessible to agents and buyers, to facilitate cooperation and efficient transactions. 14. Must-buy buyer, a buyer who has a pressing need or strong motivation to purchase a property, regardless of price or other factors. 15. Must-sell seller, a seller who has a pressing need or strong motivation to sell a property, regardless of price or other factors. 16. National Association of Realtors, a registered, the largest professional association of real estate agents in the United States, representing over 1.4 million members and promoting professionalism, education, and advocacy for the industry. 17. Office Procedures Manual, a written guide to the policies, procedures, and practices of a real estate office or brokerage, outlining the expectations and responsibilities of staff members and agents. 18. 100% Commission Office, an office or brokerage model in which agents receive 100% of their commissions on transactions, but may be required to pay a fee or commission split to the brokerage for other services. 19. Personal assistant, an administrative or support staff member who works directly with a real estate agent, providing scheduling, organization, and other services to help the agent be more productive. 20. Realtist, a member of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, NAREB, an organization that focuses on promoting equal opportunity and representation for minority real estate professionals and communities. 21. Seller's market, a market condition in which there are more buyers than there are properties for sale, giving sellers greater negotiating power and potentially higher prices. 22. Social media, online platforms and tools that enable users to create, share, and exchange information and content, such as text, images, and videos, with other users or the public. 23. Stratified marketplace, a market condition in which different segments or tiers of buyers and sellers. 24. Team concepts, the idea of working collaboratively with other real estate professionals, such as agents, brokers, and support staff, to achieve common goals and objectives. 25. Will buy buyer, a buyer who is interested in purchasing a property but may not have an immediate need or strong motivation to do so. 26. Will sell seller, a seller who is interested in selling a property but may not have an immediate need or strong motivation to do so. 27. Workers' comp, a type of insurance that provides benefits to employees who are injured or become ill as a result of their job, such as medical care and lost wages. Workers' compensation is required by law in California and many other states. Unit 2 Ethics, Fair Housing, Trust Funds, and Other Legal Issues. Vocabulary. 1. Americans with Disabilities Act, a federal law that prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities in employment, housing, public accommodations, transportation, and other areas. 2. Blockbusting, a practice used by real estate agents to encourage property owners to sell their homes by suggesting that an influx of minority groups into a neighborhood will decrease property values. 3. California Omnibus Housing Non-Discrimination Act, a state law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, ancestry, marital status, familial status, disability, sexual orientation, or source of income in housing and other areas. 4. Cartwright Act, a state law that prohibits anti-competitive business practices, such as price fixing, market allocation, and group boycotting. 5. Civil Rights Act of 1866, a federal law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of race in contracts and property rights. 6. Civil Rights Act of 1870, a federal law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of race in jury selection. 7. Civil Rights Act of 1964, a federal law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin in employment, housing, public accommodations, and other areas. 8. Civil Rights Act of 1968, a federal law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, or national origin in the sale or rental of housing. 9. Commingling, the illegal mixing of client funds with a real estate broker's personal or business funds. 10. Conversion, the illegal use of client funds or property for personal gain by a real estate broker. 11. Diversity training, training programs designed to promote understanding and appreciation of different cultures, backgrounds, and perspectives. 12. Dred Scott decision, a landmark Supreme Court case from 1857 that declared that African Americans were not citizens and therefore could not sue in federal court. 13. Ethics, the principles of right and wrong that guide behavior in a profession, such as real estate. 14. Fair Employment and Housing Act, a state law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, ancestry, marital status, familial status, disability, sexual orientation, or age in employment, housing, public accommodations, and other areas. 15. Familial status, a protected class under fair housing laws that includes families with children under the age of 18 and pregnant women. 16. Golden Rule, a principle of ethical behavior that states one should treat others as they would like to be treated. 17. Group boycotting laws, laws that prohibit businesses from conspiring to boycott or exclude competitors or suppliers. 18. Jones v. Meyer, a Supreme Court case from 1968 that upheld the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and ruled that private individuals have the right to sue for housing discrimination based on race. 19. Market allocation, an illegal agreement between competitors to divide up customers, territories, or markets. 20. Place of public accommodation, a business or establishment that is open to the public, such as a hotel, restaurant, or store. 21. Price fixing, an illegal agreement between competitors to set prices for goods or services. 22. Readily achievable, a term used in the Americans with Disabilities Act to describe changes or modifications that are easily accomplishable and can be made without much difficulty or expense. 23. Realtors, a registered code of ethics, a set of ethical standards and guidelines established by the National Association of Realtors, a registered that govern the behavior of real estate professionals. 24. Redlining, the practice of denying loans or insurance to people based on their race or the racial makeup of their neighborhood. 25. Rumford Act. The Rumford Act is a California state law that prohibits discrimination in housing based on race, color, religion, national origin, ancestry, sex, marital status, or physical handicap. It was passed in 1963 and was one of the first fair housing laws in the United States. 26. Sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is a form of gender-based discrimination that involves unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, or other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature that creates a hostile or offensive work or housing environment. 27. Sherman Antitrust Act. The Sherman Antitrust Act is a federal law that prohibits anti-competitive behavior and monopolies in business. It was passed in 1890 and is designed to promote fair competition and protect consumers. 28. Steering. Steering is the practice of directing home buyers or tenants to particular neighborhoods or properties based on their race, religion, national origin, or other protected characteristic. Steering is illegal under federal and state fair housing laws. 29. Tie-in agreements. Tie-in agreements are contracts or arrangements that require a consumer to purchase one product or service in order to obtain another product or service. Tie-in agreements can be illegal if they restrict competition and harm consumers. 30. Trust funds. Trust funds are accounts that hold money that belongs to someone else, such as a buyer's earnest money deposit or a landlord's security deposit. Real estate professionals are responsible for handling trust funds ethically and in accordance with state laws and regulations. 31. Unruh Act. The Unruh Act is a California state law that prohibits discrimination based on sex, race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, age, disability, medical condition, genetic information, marital status, or sexual orientation in any business establishment, including housing. The law provides for civil damages for violations. Unit 3. Mandatory disclosures. Adjustable rate loan. A loan in which the interest rate may be adjusted periodically based on an index that reflects the cost to the lender of borrowing on the credit markets. Advisability of title insurance. A recommendation to a buyer of real property to obtain title insurance, which protects the buyer against losses from defects in title. Agency. A legal relationship in which a person or entity, the agent, acts on behalf of another person or entity, the principal, in dealing with third parties. Agency disclosure. A requirement in California that real estate agents and brokers provide a written disclosure to buyers and sellers regarding their agency relationship and obligations to the client. Agents inspection disclosure. A requirement in California that sellers of residential property disclose to buyers any known defects or problems with the property. Associate licensee. A licensed real estate salesperson who is affiliated with a licensed broker and works under the supervision of that broker. Blanket encumbrance. A lien or other encumbrance that affects multiple properties or assets. Brownfields. Abandoned or underutilized industrial sites that may be contaminated with hazardous substances. Buyer's agent. A real estate agent who represents the buyer in a transaction. California Land Project. A state program that provides financial assistance to local governments for the acquisition and development of open space and parkland. Carbon monoxide detector notice. A requirement in California that sellers of residential property disclose whether the property has carbon monoxide detectors installed. Common interest subdivision. A type of real estate development in which multiple units share ownership of common areas and facilities. Condominium conversion notice. A requirement in California that landlords provide tenants with notice of their intent to convert rental units to condominiums. Consumer caution and homeownership counseling notice. A notice required in California for certain types of real estate transactions, providing information about the risks and benefits of homeownership and counseling resources. Controlled business arrangement. A business relationship in which a real estate broker has a financial interest in a service provider that the broker refers clients to. Designated agent, a real estate agent who is appointed by a broker to represent a particular client in a transaction. Dual agency, a situation in which a real estate agent represents both the buyer and the seller in a transaction. Easton v. Strasburger, a California court case that established the duty of real estate agents to disclose all material facts about a property to potential buyers. Elder abuse law, California laws that protect elderly individuals from financial abuse, neglect, and other forms of mistreatment. Environmental hazards disclosure, a requirement in California that sellers of residential property disclose any known hazards on or near the property, such as lead paint, asbestos, or contaminated soil. Facilitator, a real estate agent who assists with a transaction without representing either the buyer or the seller. Farming area disclosure, a requirement in California that sellers of residential property disclose whether the property is located in an agricultural or farming area. Fiduciary responsibility, a legal duty of loyalty and care that agents owe to their clients, including the duty to act in the client's best interests and disclose any material facts. Fire hazard areas, areas in California that are prone to wildfires and require additional precautions and disclosures for real estate transactions. FIRPTA, the Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act, which requires foreign sellers of U.S. real estate to pay a withholding tax. Flood hazard areas, areas in California that are at risk of flooding and require additional precautions and disclosures for real estate transactions. Gas or hazardous liquid transmission lines disclosure, a requirement in California that sellers of residential property disclose whether the property is located near a gas or hazardous liquid transmission line. Hazardous waste disclosure, a requirement in California that sellers of residential property disclose any known hazardous waste or contamination on the property. Home Energy Rating System, HERS, a system used to rate a home's energy efficiency by analyzing various factors, such as insulation, air leaks, and heating and cooling systems. Home Inspection Notice, a notice that informs buyers of their right to obtain a home inspection before purchasing a property. Homeowners Association, an organization that manages and maintains common areas and amenities in a community or development, typically funded by dues paid by homeowners. Homeowners Guide to Earthquake Safety, a guide provided by the California Seismic Safety Commission that provides homeowners with information on how to prepare for and respond to earthquakes. Industrial, Airport Disclosure, a disclosure that informs potential buyers of a property's proximity to industrial or airport areas, which may result in noise, pollution, or other undesirable conditions. Integrated Closing Disclosure, a document that combines the final truth in lending disclosure and the HUD-1 settlement statement, required by the TILA-RESPA Integrated Disclosure Rule. Interstate Land Sales, the sale of land across state lines, regulated by the Interstate Land Sales Full Disclosure Act, ILSFTA. Landslide Inventory Report, a report that identifies areas in California that are at high risk for landslides. Lead-based paint, paint that contains lead, which can pose health risks if ingested or inhaled. Sellers of homes built before 1978 are required to disclose any known lead-based paint hazards. Loan Estimate, a document that outlines the terms and costs of a mortgage loan, provided to the borrower within 3 business days of submitting a loan application. Material Facts, important information about a property that could affect a buyer's decision to purchase, such as structural defects, zoning restrictions, and environmental hazards. Megan's Law, a California law that requires convicted sex offenders to register with law enforcement and provides public access to information about registered sex offenders. Melrose Bonds, bonds issued by a local government to finance public facilities and services in a community or development, paid for by property taxes. Methamphetamine Contamination Order, an order issued by a local health department or building code enforcement agency requiring the cleanup of a property contaminated by methamphetamine production. Military Ordnance Location, a disclosure that informs potential buyers of a property's proximity to areas where military ordnance may be present, which could pose health and safety risks. Mining Operations Notice, a notice that informs potential buyers of a property's location in an area where mining operations have occurred or may occur, which could pose health and safety risks. Mortgage Loan Disclosure Statement, a document that provides borrowers with detailed information about the terms and costs of a mortgage loan. Public Report, a document required by the California Department of Real Estate that must be provided to prospective purchasers of newly subdivided land or units in a common interest development. The report contains important information about the property and must be registered with the DRE before the property can be marketed or sold. Real Estate Transfer Disclosure Statement, TDS, a document required by California law that must be provided by the seller of a residential property to the buyer. The TDS provides information about the condition of the property, including any known defects or issues, and is intended to help the buyer make an informed decision about whether to proceed with the purchase. Red flag, a warning sign that indicates a potential problem or issue with the property or transaction. Real estate professionals are required to be vigilant for red flags and take appropriate action to address them. Rescission rights, the right of a buyer to cancel or rescind a real estate transaction within a certain time frame, typically 3 days, after signing a contract or agreement. This right is provided under California law to protect consumers from making hasty or uninformed decisions. Renter Notice of Foreclosure, a notice that must be provided to tenants of the rental property if the property is in foreclosure. The notice informs tenants of their rights and the timeline for the foreclosure process. Residential Earthquake Hazards Report, a report required by California law that provides information about the potential earthquake hazards associated with a property. The report is intended to help buyers make informed decisions about earthquake insurance and other safety measures. Seller's Agent, a real estate agent who represents the seller in a real estate transaction. The seller's agent has a fiduciary duty to act in the best interests of the seller and to disclose all material facts about the property. Seller Financing Addendum and Disclosure, a document that must be provided to a buyer if the seller is providing financing for the purchase of the property. The addendum and disclosure provide information about the terms of the financing, including the interest rate, payment schedule, and other important details. Septic System Disclosure, a disclosure required by California law that provides information about the septic system on a property. The disclosure informs buyers about the condition of the system and any maintenance or repair needs. Sick Building Syndrome, a condition in which occupants of a building experience symptoms such as headaches, dizziness, and fatigue as a result of poor indoor air quality. Real estate professionals have a duty to disclose known environmental hazards, including issues related to indoor air quality. Single agency, a form of representation in which a real estate agent represents only one party in a transaction, either the buyer or the seller. Single agency is considered to be the highest level of representation, as the agent has a fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of the party they represent. Smoke Detector Disclosure, a disclosure required by California law that provides information about smoke detectors on a property. The disclosure informs buyers about the presence and location of smoke detectors, as well as any known issues or maintenance needs. Stigmatized property, a property that is believed to be haunted, or that has been the site of a murder, suicide, or other tragedy. Stigmatized properties can be difficult to sell, and real estate professionals have a duty to disclose any known stigmas to potential buyers. Structural Pest Control Inspection, an inspection required by California law that checks for the presence of termites and other pests that can cause structural damage to a property. The inspection must be conducted by a licensed structural pest control operator and a report must be provided to the buyer. Subdivided Lands Law, a California law that regulates the sale of subdivided land, including common interest developments and other types of property. The law requires developers to provide certain disclosures and protections to TILA-RESPA Integrated Disclosure Rule, a rule established by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that requires lenders to provide consumers with two new forms, the loan estimate and the closing disclosure. The rule combines and replaces the Truth in Lending Disclosure and the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, RESPA, forms. Toxic mold, a type of mold that can produce harmful toxins, causing health problems such as respiratory issues, headaches, and fatigue. It can develop in areas with moisture or water damage and can spread quickly if not properly addressed. Truth in Lending Disclosure, a federal law that requires lenders to disclose the terms and costs associated with a loan, including the annual percentage rate, APR, finance charges, and total amount to be repaid over the life of the loan. Undivided interest, an ownership interest in a property that is shared among two or more owners, with each owner having the right to use and occupy the property as a whole. Subdivision, the process of dividing a larger piece of land into smaller parcels that can be sold or developed separately. Vicarious liability, a legal doctrine that holds one party responsible for the actions or omissions of another party, usually when there is a relationship of authority or control between the two parties. Water conserving fixtures, plumbing fixtures, such as toilets and faucets, that are designed to use less water than traditional fixtures in order to reduce water consumption and waste. Water heater bracing, the installation of straps or braces to secure a water heater to a wall or other stable surface, in order to reduce the risk of the water heater tipping over in the event of an earthquake or other natural disaster. Window security bars, metal bars or grates installed on windows to increase security and prevent unauthorized access to a property.